Hey, I'll be a little loud. Um, Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming. If you're kind of by the doors, try to get in a little bit tighter if you can. If not, that's cool too. There's a little space here on the side. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say you can stand over there. A red shirt will yell at you if you're doing that, and I'm not supposed to say that, but try it. I mean, we'll see what happens. Hi, I'm Zach. We'll go through this whole obligatory intro. So today we're going to be talking about NTLM authentication, okay? Now there's been two talks here already about NTLM authentication, one specifically about it and a few mentions, but we'll be speaking specifically about NTLM relaying and looking at new techniques to take advantage of this. And we're going to look at corporate impact. This is not going to be focused on end users, the general populace. We're going to be focusing on corporate environments with a new shiny tool set, and by new shiny, I mean, I took a pile of crap and put a little shine on it. And a demo, we'll see. And hopefully a few ways you can protect yourself and not just talk about the pwnage. So what's the goal? Get domain admin or sensitive data. I mean, domain admin isn't everything. In 60 seconds or less. Now you may see some Archer themes throughout here. How many people have seen Archer? But how many people have not seen Archer? I feel bad for you all. You all got to go Netflix that. So who am I? I'm Zack Fasel. This is actually relatively recent. I just started my own company, DubSec Labs. Wednesday I quit, so my old job. So yeah, it's relatively new. I'm out of. So, based out of Chicago. Come by ThoughtCon if you can. I'll be at the party tonight DJing. Stop on by, say hey after I'm done, and we'll have fun. So everyone's got their certification credential page. These are mine. And in the words of Bruce Potter, don't believe anything I'm about to say. So we got 95 slides. Let's get started. We're going to talk about LM and NTLM, and we got to give a little backstory. So hopefully this will be the 7-minute intro to LM and NTLM and all its flavors. So what is LM and NTLM? LM and NTLM is the Windows hashing algorithm as well as the network authentication for Windows World, for domains, for personal hosts. So there's kind of the two facets, the hashing and the network authentication. So let's start with the password hashing. First off with the password hashes is how it keeps track of your password, right? So it's stored on the local machine for the local accounts as well as in the memory for the accounts that are currently logged in. We're not going to go into too much detail because there's a bunch of other stuff about this, but we'll touch on the high level because we need to know this for relaying. So it's also stored on the domain controller to know who you are as a password hash. It doesn't store your clear text, it stores your hash. So LM's bad. We've all heard about how bad LM is, how long it's been bad, and we've been going on and on about it. But for those of you who are just joining us, LM takes your password, splits it into 2 7-character chunks, capitalizes it. That's bad, okay? So we'll take and be able to brute force the password because it's capitalized, and tables are pre-created for this, yada, yada, yada. We've been over this 100 times. So here's an example hash. If the password's hunter2LOL, it splits it into hunter2 and LOL, capitalizes all, gives it 2 hashes, puts it back together, and there's your LM hash. We know it's easily to crack, and there's pre-computed tables out there. Basically a brute force combination of every possible password. We're going over this fast because hopefully this is old news. So how is NTLM better? The other facet of it. Well, NTLM uses a real hash of the whole password, okay? It's MD4 based, I believe. I heard yes, that's good. Like I said, don't believe a word I fucking say. And so unlike the LM, the first hash is the LM hash, where if it was hunter2, the hash would have been 93 blah, 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 that whole thing. You can see how it's not repeated. Awesome, that's NTLM. So how do you obtain hashes from systems? There's all these talks about it, all these cool tools, where it's stored, but we only have 50 minutes, well 45 by now, so we're gonna just get through this. Then there's NTLM network auth. Network authentication is used for various services, right? So we've got 3 different ways we can authenticate using network authentication. We've got plain text, NTLM, and Kerberos. There's a few others, but in Windows World, these are kind of the main 3. And it uses SP-Nego to negotiate what authentication it's going to use. So there's a 3-way handshake in NTLM. Type 1, Type 2, Type 3 message. And we'll go over each of those parts in a second. But I'm just going to let this sink in for 2 seconds. If you look, the client, ooh, I have a laser pointer. The client authenticates to the server, says, hey, I'd like to authenticate. Here's what I support. Type 2 comes back saying, hey, here's a challenge, and so on and so forth. So again, here's a Wireshark dissection of NTLM network authentication. basically showing, oh, I love this laser pointer too. I've never used one before. It's so fun. Here it is negotiating with the flag saying this is what I support. Type 2 message from the server comes back saying, hey, I'm a part of domain. I support this. What? Oh, hold on one second. Let me yell. Yes, God? Is that coming over the top speakers? I don't want to touch stuff. Hold on one second. Are we good? Are you there, God? Let's not get into religion. So the type 2 message, type 1, let's negotiate. Type 2, the server sends a challenge. Basically, so you can't replay the attack against the same server over and over and over. It adds a unique challenge. In this case, I forced it to be 11222334. The type 3, then the client authenticates saying, all right, cool. I got the challenge. I'm going to take my password, hash it with the challenge. And this is an NTLM v2 response with it, with the name of the domain and all that fun stuff. So cool. Now there's a lot of different flavors with Element NTLM when you get to network authentication. We've got Element NTLM, which we've covered the network authentication. Well, then there's version 2. Version 2 adds in a client challenge. Basically, so you can't pre-compute rainbow tables, it decided to add a client challenge. So it randomizes on the client side, so you can't control both sides. And so we'll go more into that later. And then signing as well is another function of NTLM. So what's the problems? So there's pass the hash with NTLM hashing. Doesn't require knowledge of the password because network authentication just uses the password hash. This has been talked about in other talks. But it requires existing access in order to get these hashes. Requires access to, administrative access to these systems to get these hashes. But what about doing this with no access? Going on a network as a guest and being able to leverage a position. So there's NTLM relaying, as we were going to talk about. And so basically with NTLM, the user authenticates to the server. It's not a mutual authentication. The server has no idea who the user is and just accepts whoever they say they are. Now remember type 1, type 2, type 3 messages. How can we take advantage of this? So back to that negotiation dialogue. Basically, an attacker can position themselves in such a way that they can relay the authentication. So basically, the type 1 negotiation comes to the attacker passes that on to the server they want to attack. Server comes back with the type 2 message with that challenge. The attacker goes, cool, thanks for the challenge, sends it to the client. Client then authenticates to the attacker. Attacker relays it on, going, that's awesome. And then disconnects from the client and just talks to the server and leaves the client out there. Everyone make sense so far? Cool. I'll see head nods, I like that. So that's the background. And on behalf of, well, not on behalf of Windows, but you'll all be getting certified Windows authentication expert certs. It's my first cert, I'm so excited. So, mid-talk checklist. And by mid-talk, I mean 12 minutes in. We got 95 slides, remember. Services can capture auth. Auth can be related to other services. Okay, well, that's great. I got people authenticating me. Well, a lot of people come to me and they're like, well, so you have to have man in the middle, right? I need to have network man in the middle access to gain access to their credentials. And, well, not so much. There's Windows integrated authentication. For those of you who aren't familiar with Windows integrated authentication, this is the way Windows takes and automatically authenticates you so you don't have to keep typing in your password over and over and over. So when you connect to a network share, you connect to a web server, etc., you just kind of log in with the currently logged in user's credentials, right? And so it doesn't prompt. So what ways does Windows auto-authenticate? So the next question, well, a lot of us know HTTP, right? You type http://intranet into IE, and you just log into the intranet. But you pull it up in Firefox or Chrome, you gotta type in a password, yeah. So that's cool. So http://name. Well, the trusted security context just trusts that if it's just name, it must be local, and I must trust it, right? So how does it determine if name is local or what name is? Well, it kind of goes through this search. First checks etc hosts, then checks DNS, going backwards from subdomain back to name, so on and so forth. And then does an NBNS broadcast across the network. What's NBNS, you may say? Well, NBNS is a network broadcast for a name lookup in Windows world. If you don't know who a name is, broadcast the network, and hopefully someone else knows what name is. I'm sorry, I also forgot Win servers in that last slide. It just clicked, but it's in there. NBNS, though, is the network broadcast. Now, there's tools that do it. Voila, you get one-word names to auth. But, well, I mean, you got to go to a web page and have someone go to something. And so I have to social engineer someone? Nope. So for those of you who are not familiar with web proxy auto detect, a lot of this is old information. I'm not going to try to solicit this as new information. We're just getting you up to speed. With web proxy auto detect, basically it looks for http://wpad, wpad.dat for proxy settings on the network. Y'all know that little checkbox in IE and other browsers say automatically detect my settings? Yeah, that's wpad. So wpad broadcasts across the network, tries to find it, and if it finds that server and it requests NTLM authentication, your client just auto-authenticates. Pretty cool. So I have to use IE. It only works in IE. A lot of people, again, there's been misconceptions as to how we fix this. Do I have to use IE? Nope. Systems connect too. That's interesting. So if you're, as you know, domain accounts or domain computers have a system account. That's cool. So even when no one is currently logged in the system, your computer looks for wpad and auto-authenticates. Seems to be for Windows updates in the background. Interesting. So we can take and relay computer accounts. Let's keep that in the back of our heads. So again, this has always, been a thought of people are like, well, you got to be internal to your network. You got to, have to be on the same LAN. Let's just isolate people more. So that goes in the whole facet of, do I need to be on the same network on the same LAN? Oh man, I'm halfway through my slides, damn it. No, you don't. So as we were saying, it does that name lookup, right? http://name, right? Do I need to be the same LAN? Well, think about dynamic DHCP host names. Think about also DNS poisoning. That's interesting. So we have other ways we can get computers to auto-authenticate to us, right? So HTTP only, I mean, everyone's getting bored saying, oh, you got to use IE, this is a boring talk. Well, this is where the fun, cool stuff comes in. So what about browser pages? What if I could socially engineer someone just to open a website, like we were saying, http://, but what about injecting a UNC network path in that? So this works in IE, where it'll auto-authenticate to your system. But in Firefox and Chrome, it trusts local security file contexts. Now, for those not familiar with local file security contexts, a website can't access files can access website because file's trusted. So it basically prevents websites from accessing your file system. So no go in Firefox and Chrome, and that's been everyone's solution. Well, until now. So this is kind of some of the new stuff here. So with NTLM relaying and with connecting to a website for that, there's these things called plugins for websites. And everyone's pretty much got iTunes installed in their boxes by now because, God, I love those iPhone users. And QuickTime comes with that. So third-party plugins will automatically bypass that file security context and automatically authenticate. That's interesting. So the other way you can also do it, and I forgot to include the side, but forcing a download. You all know the forced download header? Yeah, well, it turns out that puts it into a file security context in temp. Oh, automatically connect. So we've got web browsers connecting to this rogue server, authenticating to it over SMB. But Chrome's a little bit of a pain. It actually prompts you saying you need to run QuickTime and the other plugins. So good job, Chrome. And no, don't treat it as a solution because you can still force download. So what about the Office Suite? Another way we can get to auto-authenticate to the server is using the Office Suite. Well, Word docs taken referencing UNC network paths, SMB shares, will automatically connect when you open up the Word doc. And Excel and PowerPoint, and that's cool. I can send a resume, someone opens it up, auto-authenticates to me, that's cool. But what about just straight in Outlook? Yeah, Outlook supports HTML emails and systems will auto-authenticate. That's interesting. Cool. Well, let's extend this further. Let's go on and focus on, if we already have access, we don't need to socially engineer someone. Well, desktop.ini files using a icon path will connect to that, as well as LNK files. So we're talking about all this. We're going internal, yada, yada, yada. That's great. But What about external? Well, it turns out, for those of you who don't know, is that SMB will connect over the internet if you don't firewall it. Now, by default, a lot of ISPs will firewall, or consumer ISPs will firewall outbound SMB, right? But a lot of businesses don't. And you find this out the hard way. Basically, a network path of an SMB share in a website will connect over the internet. Yes, over the internet. That's awesome. So we've got authentication coming in. That's cool. We got the server. We got authentication coming in. We can relay it. But where can we relay it to is the next big question. I need water. Hold on one second. That's better. That's my drink break sign. Drink break slide. You can tell my tongue's getting tied. So we can relay these authentication requests. We have them coming in. We can relay them to an HTTP server. That's been known about for a while, NTLM auth. And we also know about SMB. We can relay that. Now, for those of you not familiar with MS 08069, or 069, and fixed relaying. Basically, this relay stuff could be relayed back to the source. With NTLM relaying, you could relay back to the original person. Well, finally, Windows fixed that in 2008. But SMB RPC allows you to also execute stuff instead of just, download files, but it requires admin access. Well, we'll look more at that later. What else supports NTLM? Oh, LDAP. So I said I was going to touch more on signing later. What SMB signing is, and other signing in NTLM and all the other different services, is it basically uses the original user's password to sign the packet using a hash. And it sends that hash along every time. Now, without knowing the original password hash, you can't sign the packet. So by default, Windows domain controllers have SMB signing forced for security. By default, clients don't have SMB signing forced. So LDAP, I'm running on a domain controller, doesn't actually force SMB signing, or LDAP signing, sorry. Forces SMB signing, does not force LDAP signing. And LDAP supports NTLM. So we can now relay to domain controllers using NTLM relaying to LDAP. That's kind of cool. The only caveat is that we can't do that unless there's can't change password unless SSL is enabled. And SSL is enabled by default in LDAP. Something to keep in mind. So there's other things we can possibly relate to. There's been a lot of talk about this in the industry, and no one's really put the time and effort into researching it. But there's remote desktop, VPN, Telnet, FTP. A lot of these include NTLM. I haven't done personal research into it, so we'll move on, but something to keep in the back of the mind to look at later. But internal only, right? We're talking about relaying internal. That's great. Got to be internal network. That's boring. We'll do the great firewall of China around our network, and we're good. So what about externally? Some people put SharePoint servers on the internet. We can relate to that. That's cool. Not a lot of people have SharePoint exposed to the internet. So it's something to keep in mind. But something that is exposed by most people are interfaces for the mobile phones for email. And so Exchange. Oh, Exchange. How many people are familiar with Exchange on their phone? Yes? Cool, great, awesome. Well, Exchange Web Services is the new flavor of Exchange RPC, which Microsoft has switched to authenticate your phone. This supports NTLM by default. So we've got a few different things here. That's the XML. Moving on. We have a few different pieces together. Let's put them together. So let's look at 3 scenarios. We talked about all this relaying stuff. It's all kind of like, oh, this. Let's put 3 pieces together, or 3 different scenarios to show how this attack could be carried out using NTLM relaying, right? So first off, let's talk about the internal employee. We'll call her Pam. Hey, Pam. So if Pam wanted to, say, get domain admin in 60 seconds or less, and this is really the big 60 seconds or less demo, Pam's already got a login on the network, she's got access to shares, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're worried about internal threat. So as we were saying, the desktop.ini files, we can put in a UNC network path as an icon resource in the desktop.ini files. So all Pam has to do is upload this desktop.ini file to a network share that everyone has access to on the internal network, and just wait for the admin to connect to the share, or coax them a little bit with a few beers. If it's Pam, it's beers. And the admin auto-authenticates to the SMB share that's listed in the desktop.ini file. The attacker then can relay to the server or LDAP or to servers. Oh, damn the pirate virus. Just wait. Relay to servers or LDAP on the domain controller, promote the user domain admin, or add a new user, or just get shell on the different boxes on the servers and relay around. And there's all post-exploitation techniques. I don't feel like going into that because we only have 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. Cool. So that's an internal threat. That's how you get domain admin in 60 seconds. Awesome. Moving on. And that's my talk. Cool. Next, there's rogue Wi-Fi. Let's look at we have road warriors on the road a lot. We've got to be concerned about, not just the internal threat, but them on the road. So with rogue Wi-Fi users, we can take and set up a rogue DNS or NBNS on a network that they connect to, using karma attacks to get them to connect to our rogue AP or on an existing network they're connected to. Relay these rogue clients if there's multiple clients on the AP, relay them to each other to get authenticate or access to them, or to Exchange Web Services. And we have access to data on the Exchange Web Services. That's cool, and we'll have a demo of this later. I mean, if the demo works. I don't want to get people's hopes up. And then finally, the external attacker. So the external attacker point of view in this NTLM relaying world that's new and really hasn't been talked about much is that we can relay these NTLM authentication requests, like I said, over the internet. So using a social engineering technique or persistent XSS on a site we know they're going to check, we can then get the authentication requests coming in and relay them to the Exchange Web Server. So there's some tools out there that do that, do some of this stuff. There's SMB relaying, there's Squirtle, and there's a few more that do NTLM relaying, but a lot of them fall short. They all relay everything to one destination. It's very noisy, and they all look for shell. They all try to get access right away, and they're very limited surface, SMB to SMB, HTTP to HTTP. We've talked about a lot of time about being able to do cross-protocol relaying of NTLM authentication requests. So I decided, I got to be a problem solver and write a tool that can relay multiple authentication requests from one protocol to another and route things around. So I know the name is lame, but it was one of those challenge accepted moments, and I don't step down from a challenge accepted. So wrote a tool, released at DerbyCon, and made a few updates since then called Zack Attack, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more now. And the way it's different than a lot of these other tools that are out there on the offensive side is that it figures out who the user is before relaying it. Now, all these other previous tools take all the authentication requests in and don't know who the user is and just relay them on. This can differentiate which user is which, and we'll talk more why in a second, as well as rules to relay them to different unique destinations as soon as you see a user, and utilize limited access. Instead of focusing on getting shell, focus on getting data or enumeration information, etc. So there's 4 components in this tool, and it's kind of similar to other tools except for the added rule set. We have the servers, the clients, the payloads, and the rules. Those are the 4 aspects. Now on the server side, remember how we were talking about getting those authentication requests is we need to be able to listen to receive the authentication requests for the NTLM relaying. So we have a rogue SMB and a rogue HTTP server. How is this different than other tools? Now remember the type 1, type 2, type 3 message that we were talking about previously? Well, the challenge isn't sent until type 2. And we have the user connecting to us at type 1, and we don't know who they are until type 3. Now, one previous tool, actually Squirtle, tried to track the users using cookies for HTTP authentication requests. Well, the problem with cookies is that cookies don't preserve for WPAD connections when it's looking for the proxy. So we need a way to be able to figure out who the user is, including SMB. There's no way of knowing, before they authenticate completely who the user is other than IP address. And if you're going across the internet, you have a NAT and you're not able to see. So in the Zack Attack tool, I have what I like to call the Alzheimer feature, where it just keeps forgetting who you are and keeps getting you to re-authenticate and tell you who you are. So basically, the rogue HTTP and rogue SMB server will get you to authenticate. Use a static challenge to get you to authenticate with 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 8. As soon as the authentication comes in, say, cool, we're authenticated. And the first message when you get the connection in, say, oh, hey, I forgot who you are. Who are you again? And re-authenticate and re-authenticate and re-authenticate and re-authenticate and so on and so forth. Which is cool and all, but we just have people authenticating to us, and that's nothing, right? It's just a server payload. But how do we integrate this into other stuff? Well, we got to get people to authenticate to us, right? So instead, the Zack Attack tool is auto generation for payloads. Really, the goal of this tool was to be the fire sheep that was to HTTP and HTTPS for NTLM relaying. So I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. So we have payload generation. Auto generation of desktop .ini, the HTML files, Word docs, the emails, and the LNK files we have to do manually because it's a pain. But how to create the payloads automatically, as well as the HTML payloads for IE, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari, as well as a JavaScript payload that I'm finishing that up. That should be posted next week for sure. I shouldn't say for sure on video. Maybe. So we got people authenticating to us, we got the server, we got the authentication request coming in. The next part of the tool is the client, right? Where can we connect to? So we can connect to SMB, as well as there's a SOCKS proxy now written for the tool that you can basically use whatever SMB toolset you want and relay it through SOCKS. It's pretty cool. I'm kind of excited about that because I wrote that on a plane ride and it worked out somehow. As well as HTTP, Exchange Web Services, and LDAP. And then also the rules. Now, as I was saying, that's different about this tool is that there's a rule set we can write for it. With the rule set, we can basically say when you see X user, because we now know who all the users are, connect them to Y server using this service and perform these actions. So we can pre-populate these rules. So as soon as if we see a user just authenticate to us once, we don't have to send them to one source. We can set rules as to where to relay them to. So the slide everyone has been asking me about. We're going to try a demo, and we're going to try a live demo. And please bow your heads and say a prayer to the demo gods real quick. This is just in case. This is Zima. Oh, I do not follow the iced bro. I'm sorry. But wow, that was like such a weak boo. That was like, I guess I have to peer pressure. Thanks, buddy. It's not. Oh, God. Foreign. All right. So. It did taste a little salty. Oh, too far, too far. No, the made in the room joke was okay, but the salty joke was too far. All right, so here's a quick demo of the tool so you guys can kind of get it understand. There's not much documentation, but it's a web interface. Ruby-based. Start it up. Zackattack.rb. Cool, it's running. I'm not restarting it because I'm still praying to the demo guy in the back of my head. Yes, it refreshed. So this is the tool set. This is the front page. That's great, whatever. I have to keep looking at this because I'm not mirrored. So like I was saying, there's different things. We can write rules as to when you see a user in a certain group perform a certain action. Now we can self-define these groups, or in the next version, take and have it auto-populate this from enumeration information from the database. So what we have running right here, and I have them running in extra windows, is we have a domain controller. I'll just pull up the IP info so it doesn't look like it's fishy. So we have this domain controller running in a VM right now, and it's running as well on the domain controller Exchange Web Services. So let's treat this as our external Exchange and get rid of it. That's running over here. Cool. So we have the tool set running here, and in the background we have a Windows 7 host. Just a normal Windows 7 host who's not authenticated or failing. Okay, great. So in the scenario that we were talking about having someone externally auto-authenticate to you. So here's Firefox, and as we were saying before, I actually need this for the demo. I hate long-winded demos, so I'll try to make this fast. So as we were saying with the auto-authentication in Firefox, it respected the local file security contacts, right? Oh, please let there be internet. Thank you, demo gods. So as we see in the error console, it pops up saying, hey, security error, I'm not going to let you load that link. Cool, I get that. What if we try to load an external plugin, such as, I don't know, QuickTime? Now let me pull up the other VM here. There it is. Keep that just in sight enough. So here we go, saying Firefox, go ahead, QuickTime loads, and as you can see over in the second window, we've got a user connected to us. Yay! So this backtrack VM is the rogue attacker. We go ahead and refresh the web page. Where's refreshing? We can see that the user is currently connected, and we last see him. Now what's cool about the tool is if you integrate it into a social engineering campaign, It keeps track as to the individual paths they connect back to. So you can use different payloads for different attack vectors and know exactly how they're connecting back, as well as what method, what IP time. And if you go ahead and click on, I believe I still have, yes, all the historical sessions. It's not pretty, it's just putzing it, but it's there. So, all right, we got a user authenticating to us. That's great, whatever. We've seen tools that just capture hashes, as well as, oh look, the hash is there. Cool, it's storing that too. So we've had that happen before, but what about having it actually do something, right? So let's go ahead and create a rule. And it's this simple. Adding them to a self-defined group, we'll call it yo, bro. Thanks, YOLO. I hate that name. This guy changed his name on Facebook since his last name's Low to YOLO. Thanks, buddy. So we'll create a rule. We'll first add the Exchange Web Services thing in here as a target group. And we'll call it yo hosts. So if we see a user in yo, then we can pick which module we want to connect. Now we're demonstrating across the internet, so we'll do Exchange Web Services, and we'll forward it to yo hosts. Now, as soon as I create this, it's going to automatically run. So let me make sure that this is in the side. Now, another thing I should point out too, what's cool and different about this tool is that it's waiting and holding on the user as long as possible. So it's keeping them to re-authenticate over and over and over, but delaying it. So basically, it's holding on and waiting till it could time out, possibly time out, and then replying back saying, oh, here's a static thing, re-authenticate to this. So basically, we're waiting for an instruction, and we're holding on to that user as long as possible. So if we go ahead and create the rule, and hopefully they'll still authenticate, boom. It actually worked, thank God, yes. Connected to Exchange Web Services and pulled the two emails. Now, there's no nice parsing for it now. But if we look at Zack attack, oh, where's dev? Hold on a second here. Dev, Zack attack dev. And we go into the results folder, you'll see there's a file called EWS Zack attack. And in XML format, because I didn't want to make it all pretty, and I'm sorry it's not the world's prettiest demo of shells popping, but it shows enough that it's connecting back and pulling the emails. And let's look for a password in this file. Oh, subject your passwords. This looks juicy. Domain admin account, your login is password 1. Oh my gosh, that's a cool email. And to go ahead and show and not have people go, oh, you totally just faked this, because I know everyone's going to say that, because everyone wants their money back on this bet pool. We'll do it in here. 192.168, 72.3, OWA. Make this demo go fast. Oh, God, make me actually do stuff. Oh. So it was user, and I already know the password because this is preset, and there's the emails that I pulled. So here's the your passwords email. Voila. Oh, look, same email. That's cool. And as an attacker, I just saw that all here, relayed. Awesome. So that's the demo. It's not all fantastic. It works! And because it works, I won't drink that shitty drink. But yeah, on the flip side, the SMB is not working. But so that's one of the demos showing the Exchange Web Services working. Now this can be done over the internet, like I said. We can get people to connect to us remotely over the internet if they don't have SMB firewalled, or we get them neighboring to us. That's cool, at least in my eyes. So there's a demo. So how do we fix this? We're talking about doing this NTLM relaying, and get this mic out of here again. We're talking about doing this NTLM relaying and talking about, you know, all this cool offensive security stuff. So how do we fix it? Well, there's a lot of people with mixed solutions. I saw this on Reddit the other day. I thought it was perfect. But so there's a lot of mixed solutions right now for how do we fix NTLM relaying. People say use NTLM version 2, use citing, use extended IS. Well, the problem is that unless we force all this stuff, Windows will automatically negotiate down and allow it. So there's really two core issues with this. with the NTLM relaying. There's the NTLM relaying, but there's also the auto authentication and having clients automatically authenticate to us. But before we fix anything, and especially in corporate environments, we have a lot we have to worry about. First of all, security is not here to help and not interfere. As much as we want to interfere, it's not our job to, make their lives a living hell to the point where they can't get their job done. As well as we have legacy OSs, including Windows 2000 still. Please upgrade. But people still have Windows 2000 in their environments and they can't upgrade. It's business, right? They don't have support for everything, as well as third-party devices that may not support SMB signing and all this other stuff. So in a perfect world, in the dream world, if you can set up your domain with Kerberos only, NTLM disabled, SMB signing force on everything, LDAP signing force on everything, external HTTP servers requiring client SSL certs and VPN, and yes, Exchange 2 requiring client SSL certs, you'd be secure. And that's how you fix it. Great, but the problem is telling people that, hey, you've got to force Kerberos tomorrow and fix this problem isn't going to work. It isn't going to get adopted. And if any of you were in Bruce's talk earlier, we were talking about this idea of, actually fixing stuff and not just saying, oh, passwords are a problem. Oh, we got to do this over and over. There was a lot more to the talk. Please don't use that as a summation of his talk. Shitty summary. You call it that. But that's in the perfect world, right? But there's a lot we have to consider, right? So like I said, there's the two core issues, the NTLM relaying and the automatic authentication. So when you go to fix it in your environments, if you're a sysadmin or you're making recommendations as a consultant, keep those two things in mind when you make the recommendations. So in Windows 7, there's some group policies. You can go ahead and Windows 7 introduce these GPOs in order to take and monitor NTLM traffic in order to phase it out. How many people here are sysadmins or on the defensive side? Just out of curiosity. And you guys probably work with group policies a lot in the fun way. Hey. How many people actually enforce NTLM, blocking NTLM authentication in this group policy? Anyone? I know it's a shitty survey right now, but yeah. I've never seen in my offensive security work an organization restrict NTLM. Never seen it. I'm sure there are some that do, but they're the 1%. So in Windows 7, there's that group policy. But, it's only in Windows 7 and Windows 2K8. We still have XP, Vista, and other legacy OSs we need to think about. And like I said, unless we block this on all, we still are going to find that one client who can auto-authenticate to us. And some people say, well, firewall outbound SMB. And yeah, it'll stop some of it, stops you from an attack. So that's one solution. Go ahead and put in good egress firewall rules so you can't connect externally. But again, it limits some exposure. But what about when they're on, your mobile workforce users are on another hotspot or they're out on the road? So it doesn't really fix shit. As well as NTLM v2. So like I said, really, this is something we need to start moving forward to in a defensive point of view and making these recommendations to clients and working towards slowly going towards this. Now, in a short-term stopgap, obviously, SMB signing forced helps block internal threat of people relaying to SMB, but you still have Exchange Web Services. There's a lot to consider here. So in the end, we need to start rolling away from NTLM and NTLM authentication. But the problem is it's not going to be fast. So really, this is also a call to people to start pushing out that message of we need to stop NTLM. We've been talking about this for years. We've been talking about this since 98, probably, I think was the first mention of it, or 96. Anyone remember? Call bullshit on me. I don't know what year it was. Anyone? No? Okay, interesting. I don't remember when the first mention of NTLM really was, but it's been around for a while, and no one's just gotten rid of it or forced signing on it. So this is kind of the reason the whole tool is coming together, and the reason I talk a lot about the tool is I'm trying to make it so we can start putting the pressure on organizations in order to do it and move away from it. And further education, training to secure more. So yeah, that's next. More education. Hopefully, I find more time to write up good remediation for it so we can all share the knowledge instead of just a few key people. And further development of the tool because it's a little broken. Now, I probably missed a few things, so I'm opening this up to questions now. If anyone's got any questions or further elaboration, go ahead and let me see hands or come on up or however people want to do it. I see a hand there, yes? Yeah, I hate you. Now I need the drink. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, so basically in the desktop.ini file, it sets the icon of the folder to be a UNC network path. Clear it up? Cool. Yeah, it's Google icon desktop folder, and you basically put a UNC path and you're set. Yes, sir. Yes. So they have write access to a network share. So basically, you have a community network share, and basically you have a bunch of people who use it, upload reports. Yeah, yeah. If they have write access to a share, yeah. I mean, so if they have write access to a common share, yes. There's other ways. That was the scenario I painted. You could also send them an email with a Word doc and all the other ways we got to auto-authenticate. But that was the way I picked, so it was in the background. It wasn't obvious. So, other questions? I'm not missing any hands or throw something at me. Cool. For those of you who don't want to raise your hands, I'll be up here for a little bit because we still have 5 minutes, give or take. I can get a 5-minute, yeah. So I'll be around here for 5 minutes while I wrap up. And otherwise, thanks for coming on by, guys, and I'll see you tonight. The drink sucks.